Roles, duties, and responsibilities of an micro observer in an election. Disclaimer: this training material is for use in training of election officials. It should not be referred as guideline of ECI. In case of any variance in this training material, the Commission guidelines, rules, laws shall prevail. Learning outcomes. At the end of the session, the participants will be able to define micro observer, explain the importance of having micro observer in polling, know the roles, responsibilities of micro observer in polling, cite the key tasks of micro observer, understand the part 1 of poll day report of presiding officer, familiarize with the proformas formats used by the micro observer. Micro observers. The micro observers are those observers who are expected to observe the polling process on the day of poll. They are assigned duties in the polling station. They shall be part of the polling team and be seated in the polling station. Appointment and randomization. The district election officer will prepare a list of the staff of Government of India and central public sector undertakings to be appointed as micro observer. The micro observers will be randomized in the presence of the observer among selected polling stations. Duties of micro observer. Duties of micro observer are: they work directly under the control and supervision of general observer. The micro observer needs to observe the overall election process of the polling booths assigned to him or her. They should be present in the station before 6 am on the day of poll. Should submit a feedback report, that is 18-point report, to observer after the polling. Responsibilities. The responsibilities of micro observer are: to assess the preparedness of the polling station, to check the availability of AMF, that is assured minimum facilities, at the polling station and certify before the start of poll. The observer would use the service of micro observers and sector officers to carry out random checks and ensure distribution of voter information slips. To observe the polling procedure, to observe the mock poll process and sealing after the mock poll, to observe the presence of various officials and polling parties, and if it has been carried out as per prescribed procedure, to observe whether the identification document particulars were being filled up meticulously in register of voters, that is form 17A, by the polling officer, to observe whether the presiding officer or polling officer was going towards voting compartment or giving any undue instructions to the voters, to check whether the scrutiny of voters in the absentee, shifted and duplicate list was done meticulously by the presiding officers in accordance with the Commission guidelines, to keep a track of complaints by the polling agents, election agents, or any political party, and also understand the nature and seriousness of the complaint, to check whether sealing of voting machine was done according to the ECI instructions, to observe whether sufficient polling material has been provided to the presiding officer and the polling party, to bring to the notice of the general observer whenever he feels that the poll is being vitiated for any process, with the help of available communication channel, either phone, wireless, or any other means. After the poll, the micro observer should report to the general observer at the collection center and hand over the envelope containing the micro observer's report. Micro observer will accompany the team of poll officers entrusted for taking the PB by absentee voters in the category of senior citizens, PWDs, and COVID-19 suspected or affected persons. Key tasks. Key tasks of micro observers are: to understand the instructions given by the general observer, to keep an eye on the presence of polling agent and polling parties during the mock poll, to observe whether the entry pass system for agents is being followed or not, to observe whether the voters are identified by verifying EPIC or other valid documents before permitting to vote. To check whether more than one polling agent from same political party was present inside the polling station. To note down the time of mock poll. To observe whether the polling booth is being visited by the sector officer or not. To observe the time of commencement of polls as well as time of closing of polls at the polling station. To observe whether the CAPO Jawan is deployed at the PS. To observe whether the early total is compared to EVM total and electoral roll register, that is Form 17A. To check whether polling agents were allowed to note down the serial numbers of ballot unit, control unit, VVPAT and paper seals. To observe whether any unauthorized person was inside the polling station at any point of time. To observe whether marking of inedible ink on the elector's left hand forefinger was done properly. To note down whether copies of account of votes recorded in the Form 17C have been given to the polling agents. To observe whether voting compartment was properly placed to ensure secrecy of voting. To check whether events are recorded when they occurred in the presiding officer's diary. Reporting formats. The reporting format for micro observer, that is micro observer's report on poll day, is shown on the screen. Poll day report of presiding officer, part 1. Micro observer will put his or her signature on part 1, that is mock poll certificate or poll day report of presiding officer. The part 1 of poll day report of presiding officer will be filled by the presiding officer. After the verification, the micro observer will put his or her signature on the part 1. The place where the micro observer will put his or her signature is shown on the screen. Post-poll scrutiny by general observer. Micro observer's report shall also be taken into consideration at the time of scrutiny after poll for taking a decision on repoll or disciplinary action against any delinquent polling staff. Micro observer should remain available at the time of scrutiny for the general observer to seek any clarifications if required. In this video, we have learned about the roles, duties and key tasks of the micro observer. If you have any doubt or want any clarification, then you can contact through the mail as shown on the screen. For other videos on rules and regulations, you can visit the web address as shown. Thank you.